My family banned me from my niece's birthday party because my aunt said she always makes it about herself. My sister added, she's too depressed to be fun. And my mom whispered loud enough, honestly, she's embarrassing. I drove home in silence, then remembered the vacation fund I'd built for them. I cashed it out and booked a solo trip to Greece. Their group chat lit up the next day, but I'd already blocked them all. I'm 42. Divorced. No kids. I live alone in a small cottage in Hood River, Oregon. It's quiet here, pine trees, hiking trails, river air, and after my divorce 3 years ago, it was exactly what I needed. Or so I told myself. Before I moved, I lived in Portland near my family. I used to be the funny aunt, the artsy one. I was the one who always had a weird but interesting gift, brought up travel stories, hosted wine and puzzle nights. When I got married at 30, it felt like I'd finally cemented my place in the family. Respect. Belonging. Then came the divorce. My ex left me for a younger woman he met at work. It was sudden and cold. I moved out of our shared house with 2 suitcases and a dog-eared copy of Eat, Pray, Love that I didn't even remember buying. And that version of me, the vibrant one, never quite returned. I fell into depression. Deep. It wasn't crying all the time or refusing to eat, it was more like forgetting to care. About anything. I lost interest in art, barely managed basic hygiene some days, and withdrew from people. It wasn't fun anymore. And that's when my family started changing, too. At first, it was subtle. My cousin Margot would say things like, "You used to be so energetic," over Sunday brunch. My Aunt Cecile once asked, "Have you thought about fixing your posture? You seem collapsed." My sister Haley told me I was too negative to be around kids sometimes. I took it. All of it. Smiled. Nodded. Promised to work on it. I went to therapy. Tried antidepressants, the side effects were brutal. Journaled. Walked. Cut out sugar. Took up yoga. Did all the things Instagram told me would make me feel alive again. Nothing stuck. But still, I kept trying. Meanwhile, I never stopped showing up. I still attended every birthday party, every cookout, every family dinner. I brought gifts, cooked dishes, showed up early to help clean, and stayed late to help wash up. I did these things because, even though I was no longer myself, I still loved them. I wanted to feel like I mattered to them. 2 years ago, I started a secret vacation fund. It was a big idea, one that I built in tiny steps. The plan was to surprise the family with a group trip, paid for entirely by me. I imagined revealing it at a holiday dinner, pulling out printed itineraries and watching their faces light up. It was the one thing that kept me going when days felt hollow. I imagined laughter, reconnection, the way things used to be. Then last Saturday happened. My niece Junie turned 8. Haley's middle child. She's one of the few family members I've always felt close to. She calls me Auntie Lee. For her birthday, I hand-painted a music box with little ballerinas dancing inside, wrapped it in lavender tissue, and tied it with yellow ribbon. I also bought a giant unicorn balloon that barely fit in my car. The party was at my mom's house in the Laurelhurst neighborhood in Portland. I made the drive with a small, anxious knot in my stomach, the kind I'd grown used to before family gatherings. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed fewer cars than usual. I checked the time. I wasn't early. As I got out of the car, still holding the balloon and the gift bag, the front door opened, and there stood my Aunt Cecile. She didn't smile. Instead, she stepped outside and pulled the door slightly shut behind her. Her arms were crossed. "You probably shouldn't come in, Alina," she said. I blinked. "What? Why?" She gave a tight-lipped sigh and said, "It's Junie's day. We don't want any heaviness." I didn't know what to say. My heart started pounding. I heard voices inside, and then I heard Haley. "She's too depressed to be fun. I told you this would happen." Another voice, my mom, whispered sharply, but loud enough for me to hear through the open window, "Honestly, she's embarrassing." I felt the heat rush up my face. My throat closed. I stood there, holding the balloon like a fool, listening to my family speak about me like I was a charity case or a stain they were tired of scrubbing. No one came to the door. No one told them I was standing there. I set the gift bag down quietly. Tied the balloon to the porch rail. I turned, walked back to my car, and drove home without saying a word. The drive back was surreal. Hood River is beautiful, rolling orchards, winding rivers, Mount Hood looming in the distance, but I didn't see any of it. I just replayed the words over and over in my mind. Too depressing. Makes it about herself. Embarrassing. I hadn't cried in months. Not out of strength, more like numbness. But that night, I curled up in my flannel sheets, sobbed like a teenager, and then stared at the ceiling until sunrise. At 6 a.m., I opened my banking app. The vacation fund sat there in its own little folder, family trip, surprise. The number read, $8,242.14. I stared at it for a long time. Then I transferred every penny into my checking account. By 7 a.m., I had booked a solo trip to Greece. 3 weeks. Athens, then Santorini, and finally Amorgos. A place I read about once in a travel blog, a sleepy little island with blue dome churches and no nightlife. It felt right. I paid for everything up front. Non-refundable. Around 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. The family group chat had come alive. Haley, where did Alina go? Aunt Cecile, she left the gifts and ran off. So dramatic. Mom, this is exactly what I was afraid of. She can't handle anything. I stared at the screen, heart calm now. And then, slowly and methodically, I blocked every single one of them. Mom. Haley. Cecile. Cousins. All gone. When I blocked them, it didn't feel like triumph. It didn't feel like revenge, either. It felt quiet. Like walking out of a building where the fire alarm's been blaring for years and suddenly realizing there's peace on the outside. I didn't tell anyone I was going to Greece. Not friends. Not coworkers. I packed light, just a carry-on and a small backpack. I left notes for my neighbor to water my succulents and grab my mail. I boarded the flight out of PDX the following Wednesday and didn't look back. The first few days in Athens were disorienting in the best way. The language, the energy, the smells, charcoal-grilled souvlaki, ripe tomatoes, hot pavement, all of it was different enough to keep me out of my own head. I wandered the ruins like a ghost with purpose. The Parthenon was magnificent, but I found myself more drawn to the quieter streets of Plaka and the old bookstores that smelled like mildew and sun. At night, I ate alone at cafes. I ordered wine without guilt and watched people talk and laugh around me. No one here expected me to perform. No one asked if I was better yet. I could just be. I wasn't healed. But I was starting to feel real again. By the time I got to Santorini, I had stopped checking my phone reflexively. I realized I hadn't heard my mom's voice in over a week. I used to hear it in my head all the time, those critical little echoes. Fix your hair. Try harder to be cheerful. Don't be so sensitive. Silence had replaced it, and silence felt better. Santorini was full of honeymooners and influencers. I didn't care. I stayed in a cave house I found on Airbnb, with curved white walls and an outdoor tub overlooking the caldera. I read paperbacks, sipped cold coffee in the mornings, and journaled, not about them, but about me. What I liked. What I wanted. What I missed. And that's when I realized, I didn't miss them. I missed being loved. There's a difference. Amorgos was last. That island changed me. There's this monastery there, Panagia Hosoviatissa, built into the side of a cliff, 300 meters above the sea. To get there, you have to climb hundreds of white stone steps. I'm not a fit person. I have bad knees and a history of quitting halfway through things. But I made that climb, sweating and shaking, heart pounding like a drum. Inside, it was dim and cool. A monk offered me a piece of lukumi and a sip of raki. He didn't speak English. I didn't speak Greek. We sat in silence. And again, I cried. Not because I was sad. But because for the first time in years, I felt small in the best possible way. Not unworthy, just free. I didn't belong to anyone at that moment. Not a wife. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Not a failure. Just a woman alone on a mountain in Greece, letting go of everything that ever broke her. Back in Hood River, the trees were turning. October had arrived. I came home to red leaves, gray skies, and the sound of rain tapping against my kitchen window. I unpacked slowly. There was no one to report to. No one to show photos to. No eager welcome back, texts waiting. And yet, I didn't feel alone. I got a letter in the mail a week later. Not a call. A real letter, in a pink envelope with a childish scribble on the back. It was from Junie. Inside was a drawing of me, her, and a big purple unicorn balloon. She wrote, "Thank you for the music box. It plays a happy song. I missed you." No mention of the party. No mention of anyone else. Just that she missed me. I sat on my porch for a long time with that letter, and for the first time since the birthday incident, I felt something shift inside me. Junie didn't know what had happened. She just remembered me showing up. There's a part of me that wonders if I'll ever fully cut ties. If one day Junie will ask why I disappeared. If she'll resent me when she's older, or understand. The rest of the family? I haven't heard from them since I blocked them. They know how to reach me if they want to. None of them have. And that silence speaks volumes. After Junie's letter, I didn't immediately write back. I wanted to, but every version of a reply felt either dishonest or too adult for an 8-year-old to understand. I didn't want to write a lie, but I also couldn't say, "Your mom and grandma think I'm a burden." So instead, I sat with it. I put the drawing on my fridge and let it be what it was, proof that one person still saw me. A week or two later, I started to feel a familiar itch, an anxious, restless buzz I used to feel in the months after my divorce. It was the kind of energy that meant I needed something new to put my heart into, or I'd spiral back into sadness. I remembered a conversation I had on the ferry to Amorgus. A woman in her 60s, with a French accent, said to me, "The best thing I did after my husband died was start doing something for someone other than myself." It stuck with me. I did some Googling, called around, and by November, I started volunteering at a local women's shelter in Hood River. Twice a week, I drove to a modest gray building behind the community center and taught basic art therapy to women and kids who'd escaped violent homes. I didn't have a counseling degree or anything fancy, just a car full of paint, paper, and patience. The first few sessions were awkward. Most of the women barely made eye contact. The kids were loud, distracted, or withdrawn. But I kept coming. I showed up on time, brought extra materials, and remembered names. I told them what no one had told me in a long time: "You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to be quiet. I'm just glad you're here." That small act of consistency slowly started to build something. One woman, her name was Shireen, told me after 3 weeks, "I don't know what you're getting out of this, but it helps. Just being here." I nodded, but inside, I wanted to say, "You're helping me more than you know." In the new year, I started to notice things I hadn't in a long time. I woke up and made my bed. Not because I had to, but because it felt good. I cooked meals from scratch: lentil soup, roasted vegetables, olive tapenade I'd learned to make in Santorini. I listened to music while I cleaned. I stopped crying in the shower. Some days were still hard. The old voices hadn't completely gone silent. I'd still hear my mom's criticisms echo when I saw myself in the mirror too long. I still flinched when I got unknown numbers calling, thinking for a moment, is this the confrontation? The guilt trip? But no one called. I checked Haley's Facebook one afternoon from a burner account I kept for my art shop. She had posted pictures of Junie's school play. They were all there: Mom, Aunt Cecile, even Margot. Laughing. Posing. Picture perfect. It stung. Not because I missed them. But because they were able to move on so easily. I sat with that feeling. Didn't shove it down. Just acknowledge it. Then I closed the tab. I wasn't their black sheep anymore. I was just a ghost. Around February, I got a call from the shelter director asking if I'd be interested in helping with a mural project at the new transitional housing facility. It would be public-facing, something to bring light and beauty to the space. I said yes immediately. The mural became a sort of therapy. I worked on it for weeks, often alone, sometimes with volunteers. Women from the shelter would come by to add a handprint or a flower or a line of poetry. It grew, and with it, so did I. I was painting one afternoon, up on a ladder, brushes tucked in my hoodie pocket, when I saw a familiar shape at the edge of the parking lot. It was my sister. Haley. She hadn't changed much. Hair still in that tight ponytail. Designer sunglasses perched on her head even though it was cloudy. She didn't come any closer. Just stood there, watching. I climbed down slowly. My heart pounded in my ears. We locked eyes. She gave me a small wave. I nodded, not ready for words. She didn't say anything. Just turned and walked back to her car. That was it. No apology. No confrontation. Just an acknowledgement. I didn't know what to make of it. Still don't. But I didn't cry. I didn't chase after her. I went back to the mural. Spring came fast in Hood River. Cherry blossoms bloomed, the town farmers market returned, and tourists started filling the cages again. I started selling prints of my art downtown, something I hadn't done in years. I even got a little feature in a local blog, The Artist Who Found Herself in Greece, corny, but kind. I also started building something I never thought I'd have, my own community. People who didn't know my history. People who just knew me as Alina, the artist, the volunteer, the woman with the blue-stained fingers and paint on her jeans. They weren't family, but they were present. And that started to matter more. I still haven't spoken to my mother. Or Aunt Cecile. I imagine, if I walked into one of those family barbecues tomorrow, they'd act like nothing ever happened. Like the party incident was a blip. A misunderstanding. But I'm not the same woman who left the gift on that porch. I've spent most of my life trying to earn their love by shrinking myself, by pleasing, by showing up no matter how unwanted I felt. Greece didn't fix me, but it gave me distance. The shelter gave me purpose. And silence gave me clarity. I don't think they'll ever say sorry. And I'm starting to believe. I don't need them to. Summer came. It was my second summer alone since the party, but this one felt different. I was finally living instead of just surviving. I was selling out art prints at the farmers market most weekends, leading mural workshops with kids, and I had 2 paintings hanging in a small gallery in the Dalles. I even started seeing someone, a retired marine biologist named Ron, who made me laugh and never once asked me to be anyone other than who I was. Still, I hadn't spoken to Junie. Her letter sat tucked in a journal, but I never replied. I didn't know how to without risking the fallout that might come if Haley found out. Until one Wednesday afternoon in July. I was at the co-op grocery store picking out plums when I heard a voice behind me say, "Auntie Lee?" I turned around. And there she was. Junie. Her hair in 2 wild braids, arms full of basil and peaches. She'd grown taller. "Junie," I whispered. She smiled. "I told Mom I saw your painting on Main Street. I told her I wanted to write to you again but she said no." I crouched to her level and blinked away tears. "I got your letter," I said. "It made me really happy." She leaned in and whispered, "I missed you so much. Everyone said you were sick but I knew that wasn't true." I pulled out a small business card from my wallet and handed it to her. "This is my art studio. I'm there most Saturdays. If you ever want to visit, with your mom's permission, you can. Just, don't come alone, okay?" She nodded, eyes wide. "I'll tell her." And then, like kids do, she smiled again, grabbed her fruit, and ran to catch up with whoever she came in with. I stood there frozen for a long time. Then I left the store and cried in my car. But it wasn't sadness this time. It was a relief. 2 weeks later, something strange happened. I got a call from the Hood River Community Arts Council. They'd been approached by a city liaison from Portland interested in commissioning an artist for a mural, downtown, somewhere public and high traffic. They asked if I'd be willing to submit a proposal. I laughed out loud when I heard the location, a public wall in Laurelhurst Park. Right in the heart of my old neighborhood. My family's neighborhood. I knew immediately I was going to do it. I spent a week designing it. I called the project Becoming. It started as a single figure in grayscale, small, hunched, fragile, and over the span of the wall, she transformed. Her back straightened. Her colors brightened. Around her bloomed wildflowers, Greek symbols, children's fingerprints, and sun-washed cliff edges like the ones on Amorgus. At the end of the mural, she stood fully upright, head high, arms open, face turned to the sun. I poured my entire journey into it. My divorce. My grief. My exile. My healing. It was personal, but I didn't sign my full name. Just, Alina. Hood River. The mural took nearly a month to complete. Local press covered it. Tourists took photos with it. The city put up a plaque next to it that read, "A tribute to personal rebirth, quiet strength, and the power of walking away." One Saturday morning, as I was putting some finishing touches on the final panel, I saw them. My mother, Haley, Aunt Cecile. They didn't approach at first. They stood by the park bench, whispering, watching. I could see the recognition bloom on their faces as they realized who had painted it. My mother was the first to step closer. "It's beautiful," she said carefully, eyes scanning the wall. "Thank you," I replied without looking at her. She hesitated. "We didn't know it was you." I set my brush down. Faced her. "You weren't supposed to," I said. Behind her, Haley's face was flushed. Cecile looked awkward. None of them spoke. "We were just doing what we thought was best," my mother added, softer now. "You were so sad. It made people uncomfortable." I nodded once. "Yes. It did." A long pause. Then I said, "You don't have to like me. But you won't silence me." They didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I turned back to the mural and began painting again. And they left. The mural stayed up. It was photographed, printed in a local arts magazine, and even shared on a small Greek travel blog someone connected to me through the shelter. People emailed me about it. Women, mostly. Strangers who said things like, "This made me feel seen," or, "I cried in front of this mural and I wasn't ashamed." One woman wrote, "I saw your mural while visiting Portland. I just left my husband after 20 years. I want to be like the woman at the end of your wall." That was when I knew, this was my real family now. People who felt invisible. People who had been made small. People who needed to be reminded they were allowed to take up space. A few months later, I had an open studio event in Hood River. The local arts group helped me organize it, and it became a big community night with food trucks, music, and painting demos. Just after sunset, as I was clearing brushes, a familiar figure walked through the door. Junie. She was holding the same lavender-painted music box I had given her 2 years earlier. "Mom said I could come," she whispered, eyes sparkling. I told her I needed to. She hugged me hard. "I kept this safe. Even when they said you were gone, I kept it." I swallowed a lump in my throat and smiled. "You've grown so much." She looked around at the studio, full of light, laughter, art, and strangers who'd become something close to family. "You live in a magic place," she said. "No," I replied softly. "I made one." I never returned to Sunday brunches. Never went back to family cookouts or holidays. I stopped trying to belong to people who never saw me for who I was. And that, in the end, was revenge. Not yelling. Not confrontation. Not punishment. But joy. A life so full, so rich, so quietly radiant, it no longer made room for those who tried to dim it. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. Let them tell their own version of the story. I won't correct them. I'm too busy living.